Welcome to another Verbling class. Tonight, we're going to learn about job interviews. What should we do to prepare for a job interview? Well, there's many different things that we can do. I'll also talk about what you should avoid doing. So there's a bunch of questions that you'll get asked in a job interview, and we'll talk about those. But first, let's talk about one item called generalization. Weaker candidates tend to do this a lot. They tend to generalize about their experience. They're not able to draw specific things or lessons that they've learned in a given situation. Whereas stronger candidates will be much more specific. As you can imagine, the candidate that is more specific, that provides more detail, is going to get the job over a candidate that can't do this. Similar to generalization is talking about learning experiences. If a candidate is unable to explain what they have learned in a previous job. Hi, Raphael. Raphael, can you hear me?
Hello, Simon. Yes, I can hear you.
Good evening, buddy. How are you tonight?
Good evening, Simon. I'm okay.
Good.
Really tired about work, but I'm okay. And you?
I'm a little tired as well.
I see.
I got home around 4:15 and then spent another hour doing homework.
I see.
And then, of course, my wife made me a wonderful dinner, but the only negative thing is I only had about 10 minutes to eat.
Oh my gosh. It's bad for your digest.
Yes, it is. But it was very, very good. So that was a good meal to have before my class. Now, I haven't seen you in a few days. Have you been really busy with work?
Yes, lots of things to do, to solve, and to arrange. It's been tough this year, these weeks. I think this month will be complicated to me. Be on time to study.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of students from Brazil and Colombia that were in here every night. Now that it's winter, it's the number of students in the class has dropped off significantly. Is it just this is a very, very busy time of year?
I don't know. I don't know if there is a relationship about the season and people activities. Well, I think maybe in this time people are normally at college or at doing some courses because they left job and go to these courses. They study overnight, so maybe they are busy with something else.
It could be. I know in Canada and the United States that in summer, people generally are, well, doing other things, or it's their free time. They want to get outside and enjoy and do as little work as possible. So that's here.
Nice.
Well, I thought I would pick a class for tonight that was very useful. It's a chance for us to practice our English, but also a chance to practice some real-world skills, such as how to prepare for a job interview and what interviewers are looking for. Okay, so there's a couple of things, and we'll get into interview questions and how we should respond to interview questions. But one thing we need to be very careful of is generalization. Weaker candidates tend to generalize their experience. They don't use a lot of details. They're unable to give anything specific about a given job or position or situation, whereas stronger candidates are much more specific. Learning experiences is another area where weaker candidates have difficulty explaining what they've learned. Now, I might ask you about your job and what you do. And you might say, oh, I'm an electrical engineer for such and such company. And I'll ask you what your job is, and you'll say, I do this. And then I might ask a question such as, oh, tell me about the largest project you've ever worked on. And you might say, oh, I worked on a project where we delivered power to a town. Well, that's very general. So as an interviewer asks more questions, provide details. Give them more. Tell them about the size of the project, the duration of the project, issues that came up, how you resolved them. You want to be specific. Here is something that is very important. When you're writing your resume, when you're providing options to managers in business, this is something you guys should always do. The first thing is talk about what is it, okay? So the what. And then talk about the why. So you led this project to provide power to this town. Why did you do that? Okay? And then, of course, the most important thing is, what was the result? You did something. It cost money, right? You did something. It cost money. Why did you do it? I want to know why. Because there had to be a good business reason why you spent money. So why did you do it? And you know what, Raphael? If you spent my money on a project and you spent a lot of it, I want to know the result. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at what we were talking about here. Oh, I've lost my screen. Bear with me. So we were talking about generalization and learning experiences. So when we're giving our learning experiences, always think of this in your mind. What did I do? Why did I do it? What was the result? So for example, I worked on a network redesign project in 1999 for an investment bank in the city of Ottawa. We did the network redesign because we needed much faster connections between our offices so that we could meet the increased trades generated by our remote offices. What was the result? We completed the project on time and on budget. This allowed traders and investment bankers to be able to complete trades in a much faster time and resulted in increased revenue of about 15%. So, what did I do? Why did I do it? And what was the result? Always those three. So, in your resume or your curriculum vitae known as CV, for each item that you have in there for work experience, what, why, and result. Being specific. Okay? So again, going back to what we were talking about, we talked about generalization. We talked about learning experiences. Now we're going to talk about something called the long view. Well, we are, but we're going to say hi to a student first. Hi, Mikhail.
Hi, Simon. Nice to see you again.
I know, Mikhail. It's been a month. What have you been up to?
Yes, a lot of time I don't take class with you.
Yeah, well, welcome. What classes do you like the most?
Depend because I take class, but depend the hour, depend the days.
Yeah. But we're talking about job interviews. And right now I'm talking about how to talk in an interview, how we talk, what we talk about. Okay? So we're talking about something called the long view. Mikhail or Raphael, what do you think I mean when I say the long view?
Uh, the long view about your history, about your. I don't understand.
Okay, let me explain. So when we're talking about the long view, we're talking about describing events or a situation in more significant depth. Okay, so we're talking about, let me think of an issue. So for example, in 2009, the stock market crashed. Okay, that's a very simple view of the situation or event. A stronger candidate might talk about it this way. The stock market crash of 2007 was due largely to the deregulation of the financial industry starting with Reagan and leading through successive presidents through various legislative amendments. However, it also was directly related to predatory lending, which was allowed or able to happen based on the change in legislation. The predatory lending is what actually brought the whole system down by over leveraging on people that were never able to repay. Okay, so the first example I gave a very simple view, but in the long view I went deep. I analyzed it in greater detail. I explained the event, why it happened, but I went into a lot of detail. So remember, a strong candidate provides a deeper, longer view of the situation, whereas a weaker candidate just gives a light overview. Okay, so don't generalize. Be specific. Give in-depth analysis.
So
Yes. Raphael, sorry, you broke up there. Raphael, I don't know if there's a problem with your connection. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you say that, but I lost most of your conversation. What I might suggest, if we're having a temporary issue, type your question in group chat and then I'll come back to you, okay? And we'll try again.
Okay.
YOLO, hello.
Hello,
Hi YOLO, where are you from?
I'm from Ecuador.
Well, good evening. I'm glad you could join us. How long have you been learning English?
For altogether, without breakups, without breaks, I would say in total 2 years.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you've come to my class. We're talking about job interviews and what can we do to be better prepared. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So Raphael, once I see your question, I'll read it and then we can have a conversation. All right. So I talked about this already, the why. Strong candidates focus on the why something occurred, whereas weaker candidates focus on the what. There was a crash last night. One car hit another. The trees were burning. The cars were burning. The road was closed. There was 3 people involved. The police came. The ambulance came. That's all about what? That's great, but I don't care. I don't need somebody to report to me on just the details. I want to know why it happened. So be specific. Give me the details. Why did it happen? The crash occurred because the road was covered in ice. The fire occurred because one vehicle was illegally carrying kerosene. Okay? Remember, 3 things I mentioned at the very beginning. What, why, and of course, result. Raphael. I heard you typing, but I didn't see anything. Have you pasted anything? Raphael, you're on mute.
Hello? Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, okay.
So what is your question, sir?
No, you were talking about the long view, and you mentioned that we must give a more detailed explanation. But the thing I wanted to ask, it's about you have to write this long information at your resume, or just at your just propose this information in your interview.
Well, no, this would be in the interview. A lot of what we're talking about is in the interview. Some of it carries over into the resume. In the interview, you're going to provide a lot more depth of analysis. Okay, let's talk about the interview and the resume. And I want everybody to answer. I'm going to ask each of you, what is the purpose of the resume, Raphael?
Provides the company, the people you want to hire, with a summary of information about you.
Okay, so the purpose is to give the company a summary of information. Okay, Mikhail, what is the purpose of the resume?
The purpose, the resume is to put your experience, your studies, and your mind skills.
Okay.
The resume is to put all information.
Okay, so it's to provide information to the company about your skills, work experience, right? Okay. YOLO, what is the purpose of the resume?
To give a background pass about you, what's your experience, what's the profile, who you are, if you are a good candidate or not for the enterprise. It's just well, to know who you are.
Okay.
At the moment you will be interviewed.
Okay, so each one of you is more or less saying the same thing. And sadly, you're all wrong. There's really only one purpose for the resume. That's to get you an interview. Let's face it, what do you want out of the resume? It's to get an interview. So you write it in a way that the company will want to see you. The interview, well, what is the purpose of an interview? I'll ask you guys again, each. But this time, what is the purpose, Mikhail, of the interview?
The purpose of the interview is the first is to have a first impression about you with a person, I think. Because I'm not sure, because I only in my life 2 interviews.
Okay.
But I suppose the first is to have a first impression about you you are how a person, no specific skills, you know.
Okay, well,
You
that's good, but that's not the purpose. Thank you, though. Let's see, Raphael, what is the purpose of the interview?
To select the best appropriate candidates to applicants to the job, most best skilled, I think.
Yeah, from the company's point of view, that's exactly it. To find the best candidate. But for you, what is the purpose of the interview? It's to get the job. Right? Remember this, the resume is all about getting the interview. So you don't want to provide in-depth analysis and 6 pages. Unless maybe you're a consultant, then yes, you might go 6 pages. For most businesses, your resume is about 2 pages. Might be 1, but it's usually 1 to 2 pages. Okay. In the interview, if they ask you about your work experience, you do want to go in depth. Provide specific details. Talk about the what, but also don't forget the why. And if applicable, what was the result? Okay? All right. Focus. Now, weaker candidates are more focused on the incidentals of the job, the small things, such as the salary, benefits, vacation, where stronger candidates are more interested in growth of the job. Where can this job lead to? What is the job about? What really does it mean to be the manager of operations? What am I going to be responsible for? How do you envision this role changing and growing? Right? So if your interest seems to be on benefits and pay, that's not a good thing. They're not looking for somebody who just wants to come in and collect a paycheck. If you're good, you will get paid well. I'm pausing for a very specific reason. This is important, what I'm going to say. We're talking about the ability to analyze. But here's a character flaw we're going to talk about. Weaker candidates are not accurately self-aware. What do I mean? Weaker candidates will overstate their strengths and be inconsistent with their weaknesses, or don't properly portray their role in a project, especially if it fails. Stronger candidates are more aware of their strengths, their weaknesses, and their limits. Okay? So you need to be self-aware. You need to be able to analyze your failure and your success and your role in both of them. We all make mistakes, and going into a job where you show yourself as being perfect may lead them to think you're arrogant or a know-it-all. Not the type of person they want. Sorry, I'm drinking a lot, but when I do a lot of talking, my throat gets dry. And I don't know if you guys ever try coconut water, but it's very refreshing. Okay, so we've spent a good bit of time talking about these things. Now, I do want to say hello to Jaro. Hello, Jaro. Hi, where are you from?
From Brazil.
Welcome, sir. Have you been listening to much of the class?
Oh, the last 5 minutes. I just arrived. I arrived a little bit late, so but it's a subject that really interests me. Really
Okay,
catches me.
good. Well, I want to ask everybody some questions and see how well the information is starting to soak in. So if I was to ask you a question in an interview about your work experience, what are 3 things you need to address? Who would like to go first?
Can I go?
Sure, go ahead.
You have to say the companies you have worked and the period you have worked in it on each company and the skills you have developed.
Okay, well that's a lot of the what. What did you do? Okay. Where did you work? Or where you worked, what you did while you worked there. Okay.
Okay.
What's the next question you need to answer, guys? So when they ask you about your experience of a job, you tell them what, but what else should you tell them?
How you did those things?
Okay, if I'm a manager and I'm looking at hiring somebody, do I really care about how they did it, or because what you did, how you did it might be a little detail. What else do you think I really, really care about?
What did you spend?
Okay, well again, that's what, right? Remember I talked about 3 things at the beginning. What, and whom. Starts with W.
When?
Why?
Why, yes. It's great that you did something, Jaro, but why did you do it?
Okay.
Did you do it just because your manager told you? That's not a good answer. That tells me you just do as you're told and you're unable to think for yourself. Tell me why you did the project. Why was it important? Did it have a high strategic priority to the company? Was it because of legislation? Tell me why. Now, the third thing, what is the third thing you need to be able to tell the prospective employer?
The results.
Yeah. Okay, great. You led a project. You did all these wonderful things. You told me it was because of legislative requirements. But don't keep me in suspense. Tell me, what was the result? Okay? Now, one thing I didn't mention when I said result, okay? Usually money has a factor in it. Okay? So, did it increase revenue? Did it save money? Right? Usually, most projects have an impact on the company by increasing revenue or saving money. So what was the result? Or did it increase efficiency? Did it reduce delays? Again, why did you do the project? What was the result? The result should match the why. If it was legislation, well, what date did it have to be done by? The result, it was completed by the required date and done on budget. That's a good result. Okay, YOLO.
Yeah, tell me.
Should I be specific when answering questions in an interview?
Not that much. No.
Yeah, I should be.
It should be? Why?
Yeah. Well, weaker candidates generalize their experience. Okay? And when you generalize, you're not making me feel very confident that you really know much or had much experience. Whereas stronger candidates tend to be very specific.
But it doesn't mean that you are arrogant, saying those details that you achieved before.
Well, sorry. The coconut water has actual chunks of coconut in it.
Yeah. Bubbles on the
Yeah,
throat.
it's a surprise I wasn't expecting. Okay. No, you don't want to be arrogant. I did this. I was great. No. I led this project. My team was able to get it done on time. Or you did it. In an interview, it's okay to say I. I led the team. We were able to get it completed on time. There's nothing wrong with saying stuff like that. But you want to be specific. So, what was the project about? Oh, let me think of something that everybody understands instead of something too technical. Problem with us IT people, sometimes we get too technical. Oh, okay, here we go. I was responsible for a project to upgrade from Windows XP to Windows 7. Okay, that's pretty general, isn't it? Now, if I was more specific, I would say this. Now, ask yourself, am I being arrogant? I led a project of a team of 10 people to upgrade from Windows XP to Windows 7. The project lasted 2 years, and we were able to upgrade 1,500 people. It took about 1 year of planning and about 6 months to roll out. The project was completed on budget and on time. Did I sound arrogant?
No, you didn't. What I meant it was maybe if we add too much information, it could be not arrogant. It could be just you probably are flattering yourself, or you're just adding more than it was in your last experience.
Verbal diarrhea. Watch out for it.
Yeah, you should be just natural about what you're saying, not, yeah, as you said, that term.
You don't want to ramble. Be specific. Be detailed. What, why, result. Rehearse. You're not going into an interview without preparing. You'll spend days practicing. Know your resume completely. Don't memorize it, just know every detail. So when you're asked the question, you'll give them the what. If it takes a minute or 5 minutes, you'll give them the what. You'll give them the why and the result. Be specific, but don't tell them every single detail. Okay? Now, I can't tell you how long it would take to answer a question. That will depend on your industry and the type of job you're applying for. Okay, so let's take another look at some of the questions here. I talked about the why. Weaker candidates tend to focus on the what and not so much on the why. Why is why so important? Mikhail.
Why is your opinion, you think is the best way?
This has nothing to do with opinion so much as when we're telling, when we're responding to a question about an event or a situation, why is it important to focus on the why?
I tell your opinion because to obtain the goal or the best project. All people have your opinion or your way to deal or to obtain the best the best thing for the company, I think.
No, it's got nothing to do with your opinion. And you should avoid stating your opinion. You should state fact. All right? Remember that. In talking about the why, where you can, give fact, not opinion. All right, Jaro, why is it important to provide the why behind an event? Why do we want to know more than what?
Because then you can express the real reasons that took you to that. Not only the simple fact that you did something, but you explaining what have motivated you to do to make a project, to do something at your work, and they can understand that you know what you're doing and you know why you're doing that. It goes more deep into what you really know and what your capabilities are.
Brilliant. Goes into what you really know. Goes into your ability to analyze. Let's assume I got into a car accident. Let's assume my job is that of a driver. Now, if I got into an accident and I told my manager that I was in an accident, yes, he wants to know what happened, but don't you think he really wants to know why it happened?
Sure.
In this case, getting into an accident as a truck driver is very bad. What makes it worse is if it's your fault. So if you get into an accident and the why is the other driver ran a red light, well, that's good. Well, the situation's bad, but at least you're not at fault, right? You've shown good judgment. So why is very important, okay? It shows that you're a stronger candidate, you're able to analyze, okay? So very important. All right, I need to stop talking a little bit to get you guys talking. What is the purpose of your resume? And tell me why. Who would like to go?
To show the skills. I think it's the mostly goal. Firstly, show the skills. If
Nope.
you are no.
No, but Stefan, you weren't here when I gave the answer. It's actually more simple and obvious than you think. What is the purpose of a resume? What do you want out of your resume? All right. Anybody else? What is the purpose of a resume?
What would you have told an interview?
Yeah, to get an interview. Think about it. It's so simple. It's not to showcase your skills because you can write tens of pages to do that. Okay? I'm going to let you in on a little bit of a secret. When a company looks at resumes, they're not looking for the best candidate. All right, teacher, you're not making a lot of sense. I always thought the purpose of a resume is to pick the best candidate. No. In a lot of companies, when you've got 50 or more people submitting resumes, these people aren't looking for the best. They're looking for those who put together a poor resume. They're looking for all the ones they can throw out. Because it's easier to look for people who put together a bad resume than a good one. And very quickly you can find yourself down to maybe 10 or 20. Okay?
Okay.
And then at that point, they might get down to a short list, and now they start looking for specific stuff of why this is a good resume. Do their skills closely match the job they're applying for? Yes. Okay, we keep in this pile. No? Okay, reject. Then they get passed on to the hiring manager. So really, your first, or your purpose of the resume is not to get you the job. It's not to showcase your skills. It's to get an interview. You guys should always know when I have a long, long pause, something's coming. All right?
Okay.
So what did I just say, Raphael?
About your resume, about formation people who human resources look in your resume.
And very simply, the purpose of your resume is to what?
It's to get an interview.
Yeah. Now this next thing I could tell you, and I could end class and you'd be very happy knowing this. You might know it. Many people don't. To get the interview, what's the one thing you should always do first? You do this before you submit your resume.
Review it.
Yes, you should review it. I'm talking about something bigger than that.
Rehearse.
Okay, that's very important too. But you probably want to do this before you go to all that work.
Prepare your resume for the specific spot.
Well, what if you don't know if you want the job or not? Okay, let me explain. Again, the dramatic pause. There's a good reason for this. People listen more when you interject dramatic pauses. Always. Oh, I got to type it at the same time. Always, always, always contact the hiring manager. Don't talk to HR. It's not hard. You know the job, you know the department or branch that's usually provided. You call up the company. Somebody will answer the phone. There's a job posting. Could you please tell me the manager responsible for hiring? Or just ask, who's the manager in charge of? You don't have to tell a lot of details. If they ask why, just say, oh, there's a job posting. I'd like to know the manager in charge. Once you've got this information, what should you do? YOLO, what should you do with this information?
Information in the resume?
No, what did I just say was very important.
After you call?
Yeah, call the manager. Get his number and call him. Because this is your opportunity to get noticed. Now remember, you want to be in the pile that gets accepted for an interview, right? Not in the reject pile. So by calling him, you get to ask him more detailed questions about the job. Let him know you've read it. Say, look, no, Stefan, this is pretty common. I've done this with every job I've gotten, and I'll tell you some of the results. But you're calling the hiring manager, you say, I saw the ad. Do you have 5 minutes? I'd like to ask you some more details about the position. Okay? They'll almost always say yes, because you know what? Managers don't like interviews. They take a lot of time. If they can shorten their time by somebody who had the initiative to call and ask questions, that's good. So ask questions. I see you've blah, blah, blah. Could you tell me a bit more about what you see as your long-term plan for this position? What kind of person are you looking for? This is then your opportunity to sell yourself and tell them a bit about you. They'll want to know as well. And you can say, well, you know, I'll be submitting my resume for this job. I think this is ideal for me, and I look forward to meeting you in the interview. Now, when you submit your resume, well, what's more likely to happen, Raphael?
When you submit our resume,
Yeah, what's likely to happen?
they reject it.
Why?
Well, I don't know about there in Canada, but here most of them they reject resumes. They don't have the right how can I say skills to select resumes and things like that. But I don't.
Exactly. Same here. So by calling the hiring manager, I've done one of two things. I've said, you know what, this is the job I want, and I'm qualified for it, or I don't like this manager, and I don't think I want to work here. So you don't waste your time rehearsing, preparing, and submitting your resume. If you like the job, it was a good session, and you can tell that the manager enjoyed talking to you as well, he's going to get on the phone to HR and tell them to put this person in the interview pile. This happens.
But there's a risk to do that. Well, okay, if you call the manager, okay, you're on the pile of being interviewed by the hiring manager, but he will expect maybe so much that you can maybe are prepared. So if you have the guts to call the manager, you have to be so really very prepared for the interview that the hiring manager is expecting.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you have to be prepared versus being unprepared?
No, what I meant is that if you call the manager, the manager will remind you who was the guy who called that manager. So he will, I don't know, nuke with questions, tricky questions. What is this guy trying to do?
Good.
So he won't let you pass the interview so easily. None the others.
Good.
None the others.
Do you know what you've just done? You've raised the bar from here to here. Now it's more difficult for the other candidates because he sees you as a better candidate, so he's going to ask you tougher questions. But Jaro, what have you done to prepare for the interview?
What happened?
Jaro?
Go ahead.
Yep. Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What have I done to an interview?
Yeah, so you're going into a tough interview. You've already talked to the hiring manager, told him why you think it's a great fit for you, and you'll be submitting your resume. You had a great call. YOLO says, yes, but that's bad because now he'll expect more out of you. But why is this good? What have you done to prepare for the interview?
You now have a closer contact with the manager, and he already knows you. And when you arrive to the interview, he will know something a little bit more about you than the other ones.
Yes. You've rehearsed, right?
What?
You've rehearsed, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry.
So keep in mind, guys, you've rehearsed, you've prepared yourself. And I'm sorry, but if you go into an interview where you've got the hiring manager looking towards you as being one of his candidates on the short list, and you don't prepare and don't know your stuff, you don't deserve the job. YOLO says it's risky. Well, so's getting out of bed in the morning. So's driving a car. So's asking a girl out on a date.
It's risky because you don't know who are you, I don't know, trading with.
I disagree.
You don't know the manager. Maybe it's not a potential manager from the enterprise that you think that he is.
I disagree
he's
with
probably
you
another person.
No, I disagree with you. Let me explain. You've taken time out to call this person and talk to this person. You're going to ask appropriate questions, and in that call you're going to have a good idea, is this the type of manager that's arrogant, who's not friendly, who is doesn't have a good idea of what the job should do, he can't think strategically. You're going to prepare, you're going to ask the right questions. And if you can't get a judge of character within those 5 or 10 minutes, well, then yeah, it's risky, but chances are you weren't going to get the job either way. Because you're already getting a feel for the manager, and right there you can tell whether you want to submit your resume for the job.
Oh yeah.
I've done this many times. One example, a company thought I was too expensive, and they had overlooked my resume. Well, I had called up and asked to speak to the hiring manager twice. Once we had a really good conversation. It went on for 15 minutes, and he says, yeah, I'll look forward to seeing you in the interview. Now, I knew when the interviews were to start. However, I didn't get a call, so I followed him up. I said, I just want to follow up with you. I know you're supposed to be starting resumes or interviews this week. I haven't gotten a call. He says, huh, all right, let me get back to you. He called HR. They had decided not to interview me because they thought I was too expensive. He told them, grab my resume and put me in the interview. I got a call an hour later telling me my interview was later that week. I got the job. Okay? There's 6 occasions where I've used this strategy. In one case recently, I couldn't get a hold of the manager. His staff said he was hard to get a hold of. He didn't have the time to speak with me about an important managerial role he was applying for. I didn't waste my time submitting or even preparing for the position. It wasn't the type of manager I wanted to work for. But yeah, you're right, it is risky, but it's not too risky. The things I'm teaching you are not things that I just found in a book or on the internet. They're things I've practiced for 20 years. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying the odds are these will increase your likelihood. Something else I'm going to tell you, and I'm sorry this class is going too quickly. This is also taught by our federal government and the unemployment. So if you ever get unemployed in Canada, they will teach you this. But 80% of those that are looking for work, or 80% of those that find work, is because of somebody they knew. It's networking. It's not because me and Raphael are best buddies and, you know, I know he does crappy work, but I love him, so I'm going to give him the job he's not qualified for. No, what it means is I know Raphael, I know he's an electrical engineer, he's had a lot of experience, and while I don't know a lot of details about the type of work he has done, I do know that he's a smart guy, he's always working hard, improving on himself. You really should talk to this guy and find out if he's a good fit for your company. Networking goes a long way. If you're young, networking is very good. If you're old, networking is very good. It's never a bad thing. By networking, we find out about opportunities. And I've actually gotten 3 jobs in which I was not even looking for work, but an offer came to me because of people I know. Now, some people refer to this as, I can't even say this politely, kissing up to people. That's a polite way of saying it. No, it's being yourself, it's being respectful. Like, how many times has somebody asked you, do you know anybody who's a good programmer, or do you know anybody who's good at this? That's how networking starts. I would much rather hire somebody a friend has told me about that I trust than take my chances in an interview process without doing any work. This is why our hiring manager will put you to the top of the list if you had a good conversation. He knows more about you. He's more comfortable. Well, when you speak to people and become, you create small talk or you have some conversations in business, well, you create a more closeness, and people are willing to trust you more. Does this make sense?
Yes, me.
Jaro, what do you think? Does it make sense?
Sure.
Are you saying sure just for the sake of it, or do you disagree or agree?
I agree. The networking is a key thing to when you know people from different sectors, from different places, you have a higher chance to get a job, because when someone indicates the other, the boss will trust more the indication than a simply resume that was sent to someone unknown.
Excellent. Here's another point. Now, I could have spent this whole class going over questions like these. These are good in preparing for an interview, but they don't really tell you what you need to do. This class is about what you need to do and why, and what result you should expect. Those three questions: what, why, and result. If you're in college or university, how do you network? You create a lot of friends. You join clubs. You familiarize yourself with the teachers. You're building a network. When you get in a company, volunteer to help others. If your company has programs, submit your name to help out. The more you do, the more you become noticed. The more opportunities will present itself. Stefan, this is not common to Canada. This is common to Canada, especially the United States, and I would say England as well. Okay? And I don't know, I could ask Raphael too. Raphael, you've been in business a while. Is this something you would do?
Sorry, what? When? Right now?
No. If you were looking for a job, would you consider calling a hiring manager?
Well, I'm kind of reluctant to accept this idea, but I don't know. It's complicated. I think I'd call him if I know him. But
well, there's one way to get to know somebody. Now, I'd be arrogant if I said I know this will work in Brazil and Ecuador and Colombia, but I don't know. But I can tell you, if you guys are looking to get into the U.S. or Canada or other Western nations, that this does work, and it works for all the reasons I mentioned it.
Well, as our friends already told, it's kind of risky, you know. We don't know them. We don't know what will, if they will accept this properly.
I know. And the first time you ever asked a girl out, it was highly risky that she would say no, wasn't it? But that didn't stop you. There are lots of jobs out there. Try it. Remember, it's the hiring manager, the one who's created the job description. He has the immediate need. He is the person looking for the job, or to fill the job. Now, I haven't talked about how you would approach this. I'll look at that later, Jaro. I'm not going to have time now. I've only got a minute to wrap up. But keep in mind, it's how you approach the call. most times when we look at a job description, it doesn't always provide us with enough information. So the call might go something like this. Hi, Raphael. I was looking at your job posting with ABC Company, and I'm very interested in this role. Do you have 5 minutes to talk about it? There's just a few questions I have. Okay, start off that way. The person will most likely say yes. And then you can go into the questions you have to help identify the role more clearly. So maybe the role is just a very basic role and it doesn't really talk about the future. Okay, here's something important. When it comes to talking about jobs, if you can talk to the strategic, especially if these are middle-level jobs, well, managers love that because that's the type of environment they have to work at. What is the strategic purpose of this role? How does it fit into the corporate strategy? Okay, that's very important. They'll start thinking, oh, this person is more specific in how they ask questions. They're looking at the long-term in-depth analysis. They're not just interested in a job, but they want to know how this role fits into the company's long-range vision. Okay? Who knows? Maybe they want to expand eventually and have this person take over a whole geographic area. That may not be mentioned in a job interview. And it also gives you a little bit of time to say, oh, that's perfect. He might ask you questions. Well, what's your experience? You can almost consider this a mini interview. Jaro, what's this TED Talk about?
It talks about I forgot about the name, like he draws 3 circles and shows us the importance of the why. And he shows that like weak leaders shows mostly what they do it, and strong leaders shows why they do it. So you should care more why you do something than what are you doing. So if you know why are you doing, you do it better and you have more chances to achieve.
Yeah, very good, thank you. So I'll end today's class, but I want to ask you a question. I can continue in this series, and we can actually next time just focus on the questions that you might be asked in a job interview and how to prepare for them. Is that something you guys would be interested in?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that for the next class. Now, as with everything I do here, these are not just things I've picked up on the internet. This is how I've gone about my working career for the past 20+ years. I'm not a billionaire in technology, so I'm not hugely successful, but I've done okay. And I've learned this from other people. Remember, if you want to do well in life, you have to take risk. If you don't take risk, well, you're not going to go very far and you're not going to make an awful lot. And with any risk, there's a risk of failure. You just have to measure what is acceptable risk for yourselves. So on that note, thank you guys so much for attending my class tonight. I hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions from today, go to my teacher page and send me a message, and I'll be more than happy to give you more information or have a one-on-one with you and explain it. So thank you so much, guys, for coming, and I hope to see you tomorrow night.
Okay, thank you, Simon.
Thank you, teacher.
You're welcome, guys.
Okay,
Good night.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.